If you've been part of our community for a while, you know that we have jargon we love, all related to decluttering. But in case you are wondering what on earth we are talking about half the time, this is the podcast for you. It's time for some Declutter Hub jargon busting.
You're listening to the Declutter Hub podcast, bringing you tried and tested, no-nonsense tips and advice from the leading experts in decluttering and organising your home. Now here are your hosts, Ingrid Jansen and Leslie Spellman.
Hello and welcome, listeners. I'm Ingrid.
And I'm Leslie.
If you're a brand new listener, thanks so much for being here, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our weekly podcast. And if you've been listening in for a while, we appreciate you so much for tuning in every week. And maybe then this week's podcast is not going to be very interesting for our regular listeners because they know a lot of our jargon, or don't they, Leslie?
Yeah, I think they do, but maybe it's always good to have a little recap, isn't it? Always good to have a little recap. So as well as doing some jargon busting, we might throw a little few gems in there as well, mightn't we?
No pressure, no pressure.
Yeah. Who knows? Who knows? Who knows what we're going to say when we talk about jargon and decluttering? Anything could come out of our mouths today. But without further ado, let's get started on the first bit of jargon that we use all the time when we're talking about decluttering. So some of it is decluttering related and not necessarily specific to the Declutter Hub. And some of it is the terminology and the processes that we use within the Declutter Hub. Now, this one is a very special Declutter Hub process that we use all the time called the cycle of success. Ingrid, what is the cycle of success?
Basically, the cycle of success is a step-by-step process that we use so we actually do our decluttering and organizing from start to finish in the right order. And very importantly, we don't miss out any of the steps. And I think that's why we call it the cycle of success, because we want all of our members, and of course all of our listeners as well, to have success when they are decluttering their homes and not get stuck on obstacles along the way and that kind of lose faith and abandon the decluttering project. That's not what we want.
Yes, and so there are various components to the cycle of success, but the most important ones within that are, apart from the obvious ones, which is decluttering and organizing and categorizing and storage and things like that, the most important ones we find are start and finish. And that is why it is in a cycle. Now, you can use the cycle of success whether you are decluttering a drawer or an entire garage or loft or basement. The principles are exactly the same and the order in which you do things are exactly the same. So we have a specific podcast all about the cycle of success if you want to delve a little deeper. So do go into that and we explain all of the different parts of the cycle of success and why it's so important. Now, Ingrid, coming to number 2, another Declutter Hub piece of jargon is the Reset Your Home system. Now, this is our tried and tested system. We have our cycle of success, which sits kind of inside the Reset Your Home system. But the Reset Your Home system is the biggie, isn't it? So what's the Reset Your Home system and what are all the components of it?
Well, first of all, a lot of people think that decluttering is all about stuff. And Leslie and I are it definitely, stuff is involved, but the most important thing in decluttering is to understand your emotions. And that's when we kind of started thinking about when we were developing this, our own system. It's like you need to understand your thoughts first. So we have created a thought by thought part. Then we said, okay, you need to, once you understand your emotions, you can do a better job decluttering and organizing your room, which is the room by room part. And then we said, well, once you've decluttered and organized something, you want to keep it nice and tidy and keep it that way. And you need to do maintenance. And that is day by day in the Reset Your Home system. So there's 3 parts, thought by thought, room by room, and day by day. And that's what you hear us talking about all the time.
Now, the interesting thing about the cycle of success and the reset your home system is that they are cyclical, as that means that you keep on going round and round and round in circles. Now, we all know what that feels like when we're decluttering. And a lot of people think that decluttering is a project and not a process. And that's why we think it should be cyclical, because you should be constantly going around that cycle and fine tuning. You know, there's a lot of things that come into our house every day. So if something comes in, something kind of needs to go out to make place for it. And so it's really important to think about decluttering in a cyclical process, whether that's the cycle of success, which is kind of a little mini component of it, or the reset your home system. You'll be constantly fine-tuning your thought by thought process, your room by room process, and of course your day by day process. So also included within our systems that we use here at the Declutter Hub, we talk quite a lot about resets, don't we? Ingrid, what is actually a reset?
Well, a reset I personally do in my house in the morning and in the evening. And basically, you kind of can compare it a little bit to a tidy up session, but there's a little bit more to it. It also involves a little bit of planning, a little bit of thinking ahead. So for example, in the morning, I tidy up my kitchen, but I also already think about what am I going to have for dinner that evening. So I can get some chicken from the freezer, or I can get some ingredients together to just make sure that I've got everything that night to make that dinner. So it's tidying up, but it's also planning ahead. In the evening, after dinner, I tidy up again, I load up my dishwasher, but I also think, okay, what's going on tomorrow with work, with school, with the kids? Do I need to get sports kit ready? Do I need to remind the kids to get their sport kits ready? Do I need to fill in a form that I haven't done so yet? So that's kind of part of my daily resets. I do them in the morning and in the evening, and occasionally I do grab during the day. If I see something on the stairs to go up or down, I'll put that in the right place. But the daily resets are a little bit longer, and I make sure I feel like my life is in control when I do my daily resets, Leslie. As long as that dishwasher is running, is getting emptied and is running, as long as I put a load of laundry on and it gets hung out, I'm like, okay, the basics are covered here.
Now, you're talking about the basics, Ingrid, which is very interesting. That comes because that takes us on to our next bit of jargon that we use all the time. Again, within the Declutter Hub cycle of success, within the Reset Your Home system, which is non-negotiables. Now, everybody knows what a non-negotiable is. It is something that is not negotiable. So therefore, it absolutely must be done. But everyone's non-negotiables are completely different, and we need to work out what they are. Now, Ingrid's already alluded to that a little bit. She said that as long as the dishwasher is on, as long as her laundry is on, she's thought about the dinner, they are parts or some of Ingrid's non-negotiables. And so it's really important to think about what your non-negotiables are. It might be something like I want to meditate every morning. It might be I need to take my dog out. It might be I need to change the cat litter tray. It could be any of these things that are different depending on who you are, the makeup of your family, and the type of house that you live in, and the type of life that you've got, whether you're at work, whether you stay at home, whether you've got an outdoorsy life, whether you're staying indoors all the time. Those kind of things are the things that will dictate what your non-negotiables are. So non-negotiables is something that we talk about all the time, and it's really important to pin your non-negotiables down.
Yeah, I think so, Leslie, as well. When you were talking about kind of non-negotiables, and I also thought about if you take care of another person. You know, you might be a carer for somebody, or you might want to call your mom or your dad every morning just to make sure they're okay. So it can be that is a non-negotiable for you. That's like whatever happens, it's something I need to do every day on a certain time or randomly throughout the day. But when I do that, I'm covered. I'm feeling okay. Whatever happens, that needs to be done for me to feel calmer in what life throws at me throughout the day or the week.
Yeah, and whether you're ready to start your day or whether you're ready to end your day and chill, because a reset also will get done, and some of your non-negotiables will be done after dinner before you settle down for the night. So it's not just about starting the day, it's about ending the day and relaxing well as well. Yeah. So non-negotiables is something that we talk about all the time, and we absolutely love them. These are our favorite things: the cycle of success, Reset Your Home system, resets, and non-negotiables are our very favorite things. Yeah. But probably even more exciting than all of those things is what we like to call our decluttering muscle. Ingrid, tell us more about your decluttering muscle.
You know what? I I just talked all the time about the decluttering muscle. I think maybe because it makes me smile, it makes me happy. But we really see decluttering as something that you can definitely learn, but you need to take time to learn it. It's the same if, for example, if you decide that you want to do a charity walk. For example, there's these lovely charity walks in London, and they're like, you do 30K, and then you do a whole day, and then you donate the money to charity, and you can get people to sponsor you, for example. You're not going to start training for a 30K track by deciding tomorrow, let me do 30K. You're going to go, wow, okay, this feels a bit daunting, 30K over the 11 bridges in London. Let me start by walking around the block. It's the same with decluttering. A lot of people think my house is chaotic. I need to declutter and organize. I'm going to start with a room. And we're like, no, you're not going to start by walking 10K on the first time you got a day off. You're going to start with, let me walk around the block. And it's the same with decluttering. Let's do one drawer. Let's do one table. Let's do one shelf. Let's do one cupboard, small kitchen cupboard, whatever it is. You break it down into something small. And that way, when you do something small successfully, you feel happy about it, you feel motivated, and you think, wow, tomorrow I'm going to do another drawer or another cupboard. And slowly but surely you build up your decluttering muscle. So at one point you go, I'm feeling now, I'm training myself to make decisions. I'm getting more confident. I'm feeling more positive that I can actually do this. Let me now try something a little bit bigger. And that's how you build up your decluttering muscle. And I actually always kind of pump my hand in the air and I feel the muscle in my arm. But I think it's both physically, Leslie, actually a decluttering muscle, because you need to get used to moving around and moving from room to room and getting bags and getting your hoover out. But also mentally, you need to build up your decluttering muscle. In the beginning, making decisions is hard. But the more you do it, the easier it gets. This doesn't happen overnight. This takes time. It's a habit you have to do on a very regular basis to build it up.
And I think the other interesting thing is about a muscle. It's like any kind of, let's say that it was kind of an actual muscle. We need to kind of stretch out before we start working. So that's almost like the preparation part of decluttering. We need to cool down at the end of it. We need to reward ourselves. We need to give ourselves a little breather to think about that. And there will be times along the way when that muscle breaks, when you're struggling with it, when your body's aching, when you've had enough. And that's when we need to recharge those batteries and come back the next day. And so that's why we call it the decluttering muscle, because it really does need to be worked with, and you need to be able to have time to reflect on what you have done, to give yourself a little bit of breather. There's going to be some days when you're going to do more than others, but ultimately what we want people to do when they're decluttering, we don't want people to jump straight into that 30-kilometer run or that room of doom. That's not what we want, because if you do that, then you're not going to do the learning, you're not going to do the tweaking, you're not going to work that muscle and get it into the right state. Does that make sense? And so I think there's loads of things with that decluttering muscle. And I really like that analogy really with the muscle. And we see people in our membership then talking about their decluttering muscle and the fact that they've built it up and they've got it to a stage where it's going to stick and it's going to stay and it's not going to go back and that muscle's not going to deplete. It's so important, isn't it, Ingrid?
Yeah, I love that. I love that so much. So, after all this exercise, I think we need to have a break, Leslie. So we'll take a break and we'll see you after it.
Hi, just a little break from this week's podcast episode to ask you a question. Are you feeling completely overwhelmed with your clutter? Have you tried to declutter hundreds of times but get stuck? Well, in our 45-minute free webinar, we will unlock the 3 ingredients you need for decluttering success. Are you ready to take back control? All the details you need are at declutterhub.com/3-ingredients.
Hi everyone, welcome back, and let's continue to bust that Declutter Hub jargon that we use here in the Declutter Hub. Leslie, what's the next one?
Well, this is one of our favorites. It's not one of our favorite things to do, but it's one of our favorite things to advise against. Now, this is not specific to the Declutter Hub. This is standard decluttering jargon. And so we are going to tell you what a sweep is. Ingrid.
Yes. Actually, I do like to do this. I know it's like, don't do this, but when I find them, okay, all right, hold on. Let me go back from the start. A sweep is a bag, a box, a tray, a plastic bag, a container, you name it, with random items that people have put in there because they needed to clear an area quickly and they didn't have time to put everything in its rightful place, or they don't know what the right place is for items, and they take their hand, they kind of wipe it all together, put it in a bin bag or a plastic bag and go, okay, I'm going to look at this later. And that is what a sweep is. And honestly, sweep bags are a nightmare, but they can actually be very satisfying to sort out once you kind of get your home a little bit more under control and you actually go, ha ha, I know exactly where this goes now. It is so satisfying. And half of the sweep bag normally needs to be thrown away because it's completely outdated, broken, and no use to anybody. So you can have really good success doing sweep bags, but they're a bit of a nightmare, let's be honest, aren't they?
Yeah, they are a bit of a nightmare because we tend to forget all about them, don't we? Do you know what, Ingrid? You completely hit the nail on the head then when you talked about the fact that they are fun to do, but they are fun to do once you've tackled the rest of your house. And so you almost need to have done everything else so you can find a place for the contents of the sweep bag to go. So sweep bags occur because everything is not in order. So it's either because people are in a mad, crazy rush and just had not had time, or because there's actually not a place for everything, so you can't put everything back in its place. And so, yes, they are super satisfying to do because there's nothing quite as nice and satisfying, is there, as putting all those random boxes and bags away. And that's where the coins go, and that's where the old batteries go, and that's where my paperwork goes, and that's where my dirty sock goes in the laundry. These are the kinds of things that we see in sweep bags all the time. Passports, driving licenses, old candles, all kind of random stuff. Quite often, if you've lost something, it will absolutely be in one of those sweep bags, won't it?
Yes, I think it can be a bit daunting, Leslie. If there's only a couple, it's not so bad. But when you're like, oh, yeah, but I've got bags like this, like there's so many of them. Yeah, you're gonna have to tackle them one by one. And it's like, it's all the tiny little detritus of life that kind of ends up in there as well. There's like crumbs and
Yeah,
you think,
exactly, yeah.
what has happened here? But
Yeah,
I don't know, oddly satisfying to do for some reason.
Yeah, exactly. No, quite often though, and I don't really wear gloves that often when I'm decluttering, to be fair, but quite often when we're doing a sweep bag or a junk drawer or one of those kind of, those like dishes with random stuff in, that's when I put my gloves on. And you're absolutely right. It's because there's loads of kind of crumbs and dog hairs and stuff in them. Yeah, that's when the gloves come out. When the sweep bags come out, that's when the gloves come out. Anyway, so a sweep is not a great thing to do. Dealing with a sweep bag is a nice thing to do, of course it is, after the events, but try not to do a sweep if at all possible.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to talk about something else that we're going to advise you against when it comes to decluttering, which is what we like to call flitting. Ingrid, what's flitting?
Flitting is when you are trying really hard to do an area, but you get sidetracked by something you find that needs to go somewhere else, and you think, let me just quickly put that away, and then I'm going to come back to what I was doing. But the thing is, we end up in another room, our eyes spot something else that needs doing as well, so we do that, and then we can think, oh, and that's when we find out that we want to put something that in the washing machine, but the washing machine still has wet laundry from that morning that needs to be hung up, and then we come to want to hang it up. I mean, examples galore out there, that's, and you've got these posts on social media that go, and that's how I ended up with a crazy mask looking at photographs from when I was young.
Yeah.
That is what happens when you flit from one thing to the next. You can't do anything properly, and you get sidetracked after sidetracked after sidetracked, and you bob from one place to the other, and at the end it's like, there's like a trail of disaster going through my house because everything that I tried to start didn't happen. So it is really important to stick with the one room, one area that you're working on. Yes, you might find some things that need to go somewhere else, but what you're going to do is create a place where all the stuff that needs to other places goes, and at the end, when you finish your drawer or your cupboard, then you're going to go, right, now I'm going to carry all these little bits and bobs, so I'm going to get a box or a bag, and I'm going to walk around my house with my bag, and I'm going to put them down everywhere they go. As long as they're in the right area. It might not be the final perfect place, it doesn't matter, but at least they're then in the right room. Because if you flit from one thing to the next, nothing gets done.
Very good advice, Ingrid. Very good advice indeed. So we've talked about the sweep bag. We've talked about flitting from room to room or area to area. And there's something else that we're going to talk about that is a no-no when it comes to decluttering. And that is what we like to call churning. Ingrid, would you like to tell us what churning is?
Yes. Churning is when you have an item that you know you want to declutter, but you're not 100% sure. So you're going to put it in the spare bedroom or somewhere else of where you no longer see it, because you're kind of like, I no longer use it, I no longer need it, but I'm not sure yet where I want to declutter this to. Is this, I'm going to give this to a family member or a friend, or am I going to donate it? Am I going to give it away? Am I going to put it on free cycle? Whatever it is, I'm not sure. I'm going to temporarily put it somewhere else. And then what normally is, that's normally the spare bedroom or the room of doom or whatever. And then at one point, we're like, right, we need to tackle this room of doom because it's driving me nuts. And then we find all these items. We're like, why is this stuff here? I no longer want it. You know what? I don't know what to do with it yet either. I'm going to put it in the garage or in the shed or somewhere. So it kind of moves from in our sight, in our eye, in our mind, it's in our sight, to we see it, but we know it's there, but we just don't know what to do because we can't make a decision, or we don't want to make a decision, or we're just not ready to make a decision, to it's gone completely out of sight, but deep down we still kind of know it's in our house, but we're still not sure. It's all these decisions we haven't made a decision about.
Yeah, you're so right, Ingrid, and it takes us back. So a churn happens, in my opinion, in two ways. The one that you've just said, which is almost a delayed decision. You're not ready, not quite ready to make that decision. Or it's because you've not completed what we talked about right at the beginning, which is the cycle of success, which is, and donation and finishing the job absolutely forms part of the cycle of success. So it can either be that you're not sure, so you leave the decision making, or it can be you've made your decision, you put it in the charity bag, you know that it goes, but it sits in your hall, or it sits in your boot, or it sits in your spare room, or it sits in your garage. That is churning, because that stuff has not yet been decluttered. It's still sitting in your house. And so that is still churning. So churning is something that we really, really want you to avoid, because what happens is that you leave it somewhere. And as Ingrid says, you come back 6 months later and you're not sure what's in the bag. You think you know what it is, but then you have to spend the time again going through the same stuff, don't you? So churning is a big no-no, and one that we want to try and get you to avoid at all costs when you are decluttering.
Yes.
Ingrid, we're going to talk about we've talked about all the negative things, and we talk about some positive things that we can do, some jargon to do with positive things.
Yes, definitely. And I think that is essential to stop churning, is to create a donation station. You need to create an area in your house that is relatively easy accessible. But if you have a tiny, tiny house, you probably have to kind of be creative. But you need to have an area that you can easily get to where you put items you want to donate. And that is what is called a donation station. Now, it can also be an item that you want to put on free cycle or Frigo or Olio. Anyway, you need to have an area where all the stuff that needs to leave your house is being collected. Because what we see all the time, Leslie, when we walk around with clients in their homes, oh yeah, that can go and that can go, and oh, I no longer need that. But it's random, it's everywhere, because it's been put there with the intention to declutter it, but it hasn't happened. And now there's stuff that has to be donated everywhere. So you want to create one space, one area where you put a box, a bag, I don't know, an empty Amazon box, an IKEA bag, a random box, a crate. It doesn't matter what it is. And you're going to label it donation station. And everything that's in there, that can go. And you don't have to kind of wonder again, what was I going to do with this? And on a regular basis, this donation station needs to be emptied. And somebody actually in our membership had a really good comment. She's like, actually, I want to create within my donation station, I'm going to have one that is for the charity shop and one for items that I want that I can't really donate, but I want to free cycle or Freegal or Olio. And I'm going to separate them out so they don't get muddled. So that's a really good idea as well.
Definitely. I think there's one thing I want to say about a donation station as well. So this is not when you're doing a big decluttering project, let's say you're doing your wardrobe and you manage to get rid of 3 or 4 bags of stuff that you don't want. They don't go in your donation station. They go straight out to be donated on the day that you do that project. A donation station is more for things that you gather along the way while you're doing your research. You open your wardrobe up one day and you think, oh, what am I going to wear today? And then you see a blouse that's got a hole in it, or you see something like that. And now those are the kinds of things that can go in your donation station, one-off things that you find while you're tidying, while you're resetting your home, or things that you find in the laundry that whatever that is, but not as a result of a big decluttering project, because that needs to leave separately. So that doesn't find its way to your donation station. That just finds its way from wherever you're decluttering to your hallway, to your car, to the charity shop. Does that make sense? There's a big difference. A donation station is for kind of random things that you find in between decluttering projects almost, isn't it, Ingrid?
Yeah.
So, and that is a super useful thing to have. And, honestly, it's one of the best things that you can do to prepare when you're actually setting to and wanting to manage your home. Another thing, we're talking about more positive things that you can include in your home when it comes to jargon. And this is another jargony thing that we talk about all the time, which is, it's like the height of jargon, sounds very posh, which is a command center. Ingrid, command centers.
Yes. Oh, command center is, I think, absolutely crucial in a home. I think it's the place where people have their calendar or their wall calendar, where they maybe have a list with classmates, names of the kids' classmates, where the letters for school that need to be filled in. That's where the party invites go, or the tickets to go to the cinema. It needs to be in one place. You can't have all these things in random drawers and random places because they get lost. So a command center sounds like we're launching a rocket kind of thing, but actually it's like the hub. It's almost the hub of everything that happens in your home. It can be even, maybe the reminder that your window cleaner's coming around, or that you need to service your boiler, or whatever it is. But it's all these things that you want to put in one place.
Yes, and it doesn't need to be an all singing, all dancing command center. It can literally be an in tray or a notice board or a few things pinned to the back of a door or something on the front of your fridge. It can be something like that. It doesn't need to be all singing, all dancing, Instagram, Pinterest worthy. It can be something very simple. But ultimately what it is, as Ingrid has said, is one place to collect everything that you need organizationally.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's so helpful, isn't it? And what you do see is, even still, when people go from a family calendar, like a hard copy, and they go more digital, there's still, you need to have a place where these things live. I still have a pin board. I don't have the family wall calendar anymore. I know, it's amazing. It's amazing. I'm dragged into the 21st century, and I'm finally doing a lot more digital in my digital calendar, and I've got a family calendar and all of that. But I still have the pin board where the reminder for the orthodontist and the dentist and all of those things live, or tickets that I've printed for something that's happening in 6 months' time. I just kind of thought, I just want to have that still in one place. It makes sense to me.
Right, just tell me now. Right, now you said that now, so I'm going to challenge you on that.
Yeah.
Okay, so why have you got a dentist appointment on a piece of paper or a card? Is that what you said?
Yeah.
When you've got it in your digital calendar?
Because my daughter then gets the ticket, and it was actually really good. I had that because she gets it. She goes in. I'm not allowed in anymore due to the pandemic and stuff. So they give her a little ticket when she comes out with the next date and time that she gets to see. And then I put it, of course, in my calendar. But what happened is that I still want to keep that little hard copy calendar just pinned until the day, because sometimes what happened is one time I put the timing wrong. And then I was like getting, what happened there? Was it now 10 past 11? Was it 10 to 10? Should we leave at 10 past 11? Was the appointment at 10 past 11? So I kind of, because I'm a digital novice calendar wise, Leslie, I'm kind of giving myself the time to get used to using the system and trusting myself that I do it properly. So that is why.
So you're transitioning.
Yeah.
You're in transition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's acceptable then. I was just trying to, work these things out. But I mean, I can see why you definitely keep things like invitations for kids' parties and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But of course, if you wanted to go digital, you could just literally take a photograph of it.
Yeah.
Also possible.
Yeah.
Ingrid, you could add it as a note, things like that. So there's different ways around things if you want to get that paper clutter. But honestly, you've got to do, as Ingrid says, you've got to do what's in your comfort zone. Yeah. So we have had to drag Ingrid kicking and screaming into the 21st century. I have done most of that dragging, it is fair to say. I'm like, please get a digital camera. And now she literally is on that digital. We've just done a morning of diary planning this morning, and it was like painful to watch, wasn't it? He loves it. It's actually to the minute every day. Yeah. So she is loving her digital calendar. So well done, Ingrid, for joining us in the 21st century.
I know, it's good. It's good to be here. Anyway, talking about good to be here, we are back next week. So I think that's it, Leslie, by the way. I think we've now finished. I think we've done all the terminology we need to talk about in this episode. So let's talk about next week. We are going to talk about the 10 things you can declutter from your paperwork. Ooh, I'm so excited. So that's what's happening next week. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll see you soon.
Thanks so much for listening to the Declutter Hub podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to us in your podcast player so you don't miss an episode, and we'll see you next week.